the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alright, respond.
Minutes of the previous meeting.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any additions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Bills. Got a additional set of bills on desks.
Come to the highway department, we'll have a second motion time.
Okay,
Second.
okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the bills as presented. Any questions, further discussion? Hearing none, roll call please.
Britt,
Aye.
Deesa. Aye. Brown,
Aye.
Volk,
Aye.
Lightfon.
Motion carries. Treasurer's checks.
Move to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the treasurer's checks. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Financial reports. Anything out of the ordinary, Candy? Towards the end of the year.
I don't think so.
Don't look good to me, I guess, but I wouldn't want to miss it.
There's stuff to take care of the LEC line.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the financial reports. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Agenda, anything to add? Hearing none, I guess I'd take a motion to approve this.
Move to approve.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. Chief Kanowski, morning.
Morning. You want me to stand up or is this good enough here?
I'm just comfortable.
All right. Anyway, first I want to apologize. I was ill prepared last time we spoke at last meeting about the monies and whatnot. So I'm reapproaching about CAD expenditures that we're looking at. So initially, when we first spoke with you folks, you guys made the agreement to $48,945. I came out and I found out that I was wrong about how I was supposed to approach that. The initial thought from the city was that we would both as entities pick up our initial ends, and the city's cost was $82,481, and the county share was $35,569. We would pick up that share and then take the rest of the money that was allocated for the rest of the group and then split that evenly. And that was a total of $77,729. And then we split that in half, and then each entity would pick up that end, pick up that part. So a total of $38,865. So the total share would be the city would pick up $121,346, and then the county would pick up $74,434.
And that's where you got that figure from.
Yeah.
We had talked, that
Yeah,
wasn't coming
all
up.
I had to do was read this. That's all I had to do. I apologize again. I was ill prepared. I stepped into something I wasn't prepared for, so I apologize. So that's the approach the city wants to take. If you guys want to go about that, that would be awesome. If you have a different plan, we can talk.
I make a motion to go ahead with the 74,434 for the county's portion of the computer aided dispatch initial cost.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to change from, what was it, 48,000, something like that on the first one to 74, okay? Further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries.
Awesome.
Easy enough.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, chief.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Steve, sheriff, morning.
Good morning.
Yeah. Right, out of COVID again, sorry.
Right, first responder COVID funds.
Okay. Wants to make sure we don't take it
That's
on
fine.
someplace we're
I'm
not
just
supposed to.
patiently waiting. I guess initially, we'd like to just update the commission on our status of our correctional facility. We are doing fantastic, in my opinion. We had our inspection, what was it, 2.5 weeks ago, roughly, when they came, we had 18 deficiencies. Captain Kraft has been working diligently on those. And I can maybe let him talk, but he responded back to them and they were perfectly fine with 17 of the 18 correction actions that they were gonna make. If we do what we say we're gonna do, by the time they come back in January, they'll be completely approved. And then the other one has to deal with training, right?
The other one was just, more of their understanding of the way that it was worded, so it's just basically rewording it. Once that's done, they'll accept that one as well. We do have it slated for them to come back in January. We told them that we'd have all of these changes made by then, with the exception of possibly the, Guardian RFID system. That has been approved for us to get, and I'd like to thank you guys for that.
Can you explain that a little bit while in front of them?
Yeah, so what that does, currently, when our officers do rounds checking on the inmates, checking on the facility, they have what's called the pipe. It's a different company, and they go through and they beat each location in the jail. What that does is it generates a daily report that lets us know who was there and when they were there. The reason that we need the change to Guardian is primarily from a management standpoint. It'll notify those officers when their rounds are due. It'll notify them everything. So they're able to track inmate movement throughout the facility with it, just by simply taking a device, scanning their wrist and scanning the location. That tracks everything, and from a management standpoint, it couldn't be better. What that'll do is it'll give us alerts if there's a late round. It'll tell us who was late, when they were late. It'll be immediate notification so we can see what's going on with it and be in better compliance with those two standards that they found us in non-compliance with.
Basically just checks and balances.
It is, but this.
And a paper trail.
This new system, it is so much better. So it also allows us to track medication passes. That's something that's been handwritten for the last 20 years at that facility. Now it's a simple scan of the medication, scan of your wrist, and you're done. So it creates all of the logs that we need. There's 5 other facilities in the state that are currently using it. I've reached out to 3 of them. They're all happy with how things go. Obviously, there's technical issues at some point, but they said that the service agreement that they have covers everything. And so
How long has the pipe thing been there? That's been there forever.
that's been there for 20 years.
Yeah.
It would have replaced the old clock on the wall, where they go and punch. And ultimately, initially, it was a good system, but it doesn't allow you to do anything proactively. Instead, at the end of the day, you get your report and it says, okay, there were 13 late rounds today. Then you're trying to address it after the fact. This is immediate. And not only that, but it gives the officers the notice on when their rounds are due as well, instead of having to watch the clock all the time. It's basically, it's like a smartphone. It'll go off whenever we set it to go off, so 3 minutes prior to the round get due or something, it'll vibrate or make a noise. And it'll tell them, hey, you got these checks coming up.
I think the initial cost was like 25 or 6,000
Yeah, for corrections,
to
yeah.
get in.
25, did you say? not even that bad.
So, and it does so much more, it'll track meal passes, it does 90% of what we're currently logging manually, it'll log itself. So that'll free up a bunch of time there too. All of our close watches that we're currently handwriting, you go up to the unit, you scan the unit, and then you go through a list of choices, and it'll give you a breakdown of who's doing what when they're doing it.
So when you get involved with the Guardian, they bring the training to you then to?
They do, it's 3 days worth of training, so it's 2 days so that you cover both rotations.
And that's included?
That's included in the cost, yeah. And then with our plan, it's a lease agreement, so at the end of the 3-year lease, they automatically send us out the new stuff. We ship back the old.
What other jails are using it, Dan?
Minot's using it, Fargo's using it, Grand Forks is using it, Bismarck's using it, and I wanna say McKenzie County's using it.
I know Lance Anderson and Steve Long from the DOC, they strongly encourage us to do it, strongly encourage it.
Right now, it's currently, so prior to me coming back, it was Star doing the audits. And she'd spend probably 4 hours a week doing audits. Once I got staffing in place a little bit at the facility, I have the lieutenants doing it. But it's still about 2 hours out of each of their days, just doing the auditing. Whereas this does the audit for you. Basically, it automatically gives you the information that you need, and then you just act from there.
That's nice.
And that's one of the important things that with DOCR people are rounds and then the documentation of the rounds.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, it comes with the safety and security of our facility and their inmates and the staff and everybody. And this is just another step to make it better and easier for us to comply with that.
Basically, you can't mess it up.
Basically,
Once you scan it automatically does the data for you.
so right now they're handwriting a lot of that information, and if they get busy and forget to handwrite it, when DOCR comes and checks your document, it didn't get written, it didn't get done.
Right.
Even though it might have been done, it probably was done, and that's what's more frustrating. So it takes that out of their hands.
The next,
And they physically gotta go do it because
Yep.
what's doing is it's scanning basically their badge
Yep.
and the criminal.
Yeah, you can't see you did it, you didn't do it,
Exactly.
and then all of a
And
sudden you
that-
come
so
back
it's
3
just a-
months
it's just
later,
a-
look at the cameras and they didn't do it.
and the administrative side, the logging. So that allows us to pull pretty much any way we wanna pull information. If we wanna see what John Smith did for rounds yesterday, we can pull just his name for just yesterday. If something happened a month ago and we're just hearing of it today, we can pull that information just by searching that location or that individual.
It alleviates that pointing fingers and.
It's an easy sell to the board.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was
I
gonna
mean,
say,
everybody fell for it.
For that
Everybody
investment,
can see the importance.
for that investment level, it's a no-brainer.
Let's see what else. Also, we're fully staffed. We have 18 on board. He's got lieutenants and sergeants in place, which is another big thing from DOCR, having a level of supervision. So that, and we, how many part-timers do we have? 2, 3 I know?
None currently signed on.
But we're working on that, so if somebody misses a shift, you don't have to pay somebody overtime to come in. You can call a part-timer, and they can hopefully fill that shift, so in the long run, we're saving money as far as having to pay out that overtime, which is a huge drain. Plus, it also saves our staff from too much overtime or having to work too much, basically, is what it comes down to. They get their days off that they're supposed to, so.
And the training's going well with Lake Region State.
It is, yes.
Great.
We have 2 more classes. There's one on Friday, and then there's one on the following Monday. Outside of that, we have 4 that'll be fully certified once we provide the 2 additional trainings that we need to get for them yet. But we'll look at doing that in January.
So like I said, I think everything's moving along very, very well in the last 3 months since we've kind of assumed the responsibilities of that facility, and we're well on our way to getting back to where we should be and being a productive facility again.
Well, I think with the
Sounds
community
good.
really owes a debt of gratitude to Captain Kraft and Sheriff Nelson.
Absolutely. More Captain Kraft than me, but
Well, you guys have both
Team.
taken a major role in bringing that facility back on pace to where it should be.
we also need to thank the commission because without you guys helping us accomplish that goal, by bringing him on as one of our employees, it wouldn't happen either, so. I think now you kind of can see the value we got for doing that, and, it's been fantastic, so, thank you.
One of the things that kind of triggered my memory when saw you both sitting here is we lost our HR person over at the LEC, and want to know if Brian can help out in that aspect. And as a commission, we should probably give our approval for Brian to do that, working out some sort of contract with the LEC administration and the LEC board in order to gain access to employment records for that facility, if Brian has the time and still willing to do that for us.
Sure.
Thank you.
So I guess I would go ahead and make that a motion if we can. It wasn't specifically on the agenda, but included with the LEC's and Sheriff Nelson's report. Allow Brian and start coming through the administration of the LEC staff to work out some details with that. So I'll make that as a motion.
Like to be like forever then?
No, well, at least for the time being until we work out,
What, yearly?
You have a contract link that we could re-up again.
It appears you're advertising, right, for a position?
They are
Yeah,
correct.
are they getting anybody on it?
I believe they had 3 applicants, and I believe they've scheduled at least 2 of them for interviews at this point. I don't know experience.
Brian, I don't think they're including the HR on part of the advertisement. I don't believe that.
I thought I saw that.
Oh, was it?
Advertisement. Yeah.
I think they included it. I don't know that they're gonna receive applicants.
Yeah, I don't think so.
so whether or not that's, part of that staffing going forward or something that our HR staff can help out on whether it be a temporary or a contractual basis, I think that'd be a good thing, at least temporarily, to make sure that if questions are needed, that we have the expert on staff to be able to assist in that.
I would suggest put it on for a year, see if we're at during the year, see how it goes.
Well, then if they hire someone, they got someone to lead on too.
Yeah.
If you're good with that.
Sure.
Similar to the contract you have with Lake Region District Health. I think we could do that, and I think they wanted it in some sort of formality, so giving our HR staff the access to their employment records.
Okay, so we have a motion, do we have a second?
A second.
Okay, we have a second. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to, how do we word it? Allow our HR to work with the LEC on a develop contractual basis to work with the LEC to do some HR work for them as needed. We'll put it that way. Okay, further discussion. And at some point, a contract come back in front of the commission to be approved, so. Okay, hearing no further discussion, all in favor, vote by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay. Anything else, Sharon?
We had I've been planning this for quite a while, but I did include it into my 2023 budget, to make a couple promotions and an adjustment in one employee's salary for their work efforts. And it was approved to start, and I have had an opening I'm gonna promote 2 to my deputies to supervisor level, so we have a little more experience, they can call right away. And then our office manager I was gonna move up a couple steps, because of her dedication and all the work that she does. It's very well needed, in my opinion. I did include all of those in my 2023 budget that back in July before I handed it in. It did get approved. I have some extra money that is more than enough to cover, and what I'd like to do is make those adjustments starting in November and into December, and it's still within my budget. So I guess I'm just asking if that's, something you would approve of.
Steve, you made sure that you noted that in their email, right?
Yes. Well,
Just so that if he came back, it's noted.
what,
So for instance, if you give someone a step increase, I think you should note it in their eval saying, due to this, this is the reason why.
okay, yeah,
Just so that if it comes back.
everything in that,
Questions get asked.
is always above that, or above, because,
You know,
I mean, I'm not gonna say it on the camera, but.
I think just
Yes, where.
for the individual's sake, it'd be nice if it's on paper for them. Let's
Yeah.
say 5 years down the road, the job's not for them, they can take that and say, yeah, this is what I got.
Yeah.
It just looks good for them.
And I was waiting to make sure I had enough funding in my current budget before I did anything with it. And that's kind of why I waited till now, to proceed, because I do have the funding, which isn't gonna be anything extra than what I already budgeted for.
Any discussion?
Do we need a motion for that, or?
But do we bump people in the middle? Or do we wait till the first of the year?
That's why I'm here.
Okay, because to make it fair for everybody else, if we were going to reclassify.
I don't know. It's a good question.
Brian?
I guess making the promotions, I think, is one thing. The other one we can discuss, we can wait with that one till January.
I'm just trying to make it fair
I
to all
understand, I'm
employees.
just,
I
Okay.
tend to agree with the sheriff on that one, though. I think you could reclassify in the middle of the year if it's a promotion, probably if it's in budget. But if you're talking the step increase, that would be the first of the year.
So
that's fine, and that one's fine.
Steve, that's why I was saying, but I know you have progress reviews like halfway through the year, and then at the end of the year, you have reviews. And that's why it's important to have it into those progress reviews, because when we come to something like this, you can say, okay, 6 months went by and this individual's here. You know, and that way, when it comes back and if there's other employees complaining, you say, right here it is, it's right here on paper. They did this amount of stuff to get to this.
Well, I mean, it's not out of the ordinary too to reclassify an individual, you know, to move them from one position to another and reclassification.
But see, that's the problem with this position, is there's nowhere else to move. So the only way to do that is to put a step in, because there's no other classification that can be moved to do anything with, to reclassify, so that's kind of why I went that approach. Just to explain that, how that kind of happened.
What do you think? Mike?
I'd say the closest we came to Woody's suggestion with,
And January 1 is fine.
I'm just trying to make it fair,
I
if
would
it was
understand,
fair
that's
to
fine.
other employees.
That's fine.
the change of positions, I think is, you know, that's a legitimate
Yeah.
change. I mean, they're gonna move into a different position, so.
So if we can do the 2 promotions and then just wait with the other one, I'm fine with that. I haven't even really discussed this with my employees yet, so it's not really gonna be a heartbreaker or anything either, so.
I think mid-year, Steve, we did some adjustments with your deputies too, just to be a little more competitive with,
Well, that was
Hiring.
adjustments made because of the cost of hiring.
Yeah.
And I didn't think it was fair that somebody that's brand new gets the same as a couple, which they were still at that same level.
Yeah, you're trying to deal with compression, basically.
So we bumped 2 or 3 guys a little bit to make sure they weren't the same.
Yeah, that's reasonable. At least in my mind, it is.
But that was within my budget too. I mean, we had the money there for that as well, so.
Further discussion on this from the commission?
Yeah, if you're moving 2 up to supervisors, I guess the pay goes along with it, no matter what time of the year it is.
Exactly.
I mean, it's not something.
Wanna make a motion?
I'll make that motion. Is that all right, Brian?
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree.
Okay, so we're gonna make a motion to allow for the 2 employee reclassifications, and then are we gonna deal with the other one later? Or just after the first of the year?
Well,
It's already in my budget, so it should just go on the first of the year, right?
So first of the year was okay?
first of the year now,
And we're okay with that.
we're not changing no position.
Nope.
No, I think we should wait for the first for now.
Okay.
But if the 2 are going up to supervisors, then salary goes with it.
Okay?
Okay, so we have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a second. Further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries. Anything else, Steve?
Oh, thank you. Anything else for me?
And just thank you and your staff.
Yeah, thank you, Dan.
They're doing outstanding jobs and they're nothing but good things, so,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Better get this guy back to work, so.
Thanks for the update.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, okay. How long is it gonna take you, Kevin?
A while.
A while. Well, we'll jump over you then. Let's go down to new business and knock out the easy stuff. Homestead credit.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the homestead credit. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries. Cancel checks, there was one of them, I believe. No, sorry.
Basically, that was just a check that, yeah.
Yep, and I have to have a motion so that we can send it into
Right, it's over a
state
year
of North
old.
Dakota.
Somebody got a check and they didn't cash it.
I'm-
Set it on their desk and forgot.
Well, and we contacted people and she didn't want it.
I'll move it through.
Yeah, she didn't want the check, so it went to the state of North Dakota.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve canceling the check. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries.
You don't need his signature anymore. Yep, I do, I need a.
Okay, it is 8:27. Do we wanna get everything prepared for 8:30? Do we have to open up meetings and all that fun stuff? Oh, and then we'll do that. Give Steve a second to do that.
You just need to see, we just
Just sign it on here.
And you need to sign off on it.
Yeah, we just want to like put your signature and then take this.
That works.
Perfect.
Very fancy. Made a line of everything. So
I see you brought your glasses too.
It's tough to read on Excel and my phone. A lot of numbers there.
There's some tiny numbers in there.
I'm gonna have to look over your shoulder. I was hoping I would just listen to him and then explain exactly what makes sense and then, okay, that sounds good. No, it's okay. I'll be fine.
Sure.
I'll make notes as we go along. Okay, so, is everyone on board that needs to be on board?
I believe so.
Okay, can they hear me is the next question.
She is talking. Is it mute?
There's that speaker on.
Somebody's muted, somebody's on.
Megan looks like she's.
Do we have any volume from our side of things? Come on, technology.
Tested yesterday, so.
The test always goes smooth.
It does.
Hi, good morning, this is Megan from Gallagher, can you hear me?
There you go, we can hear you, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear.
Oh, very good. Okay, I guess we'll start with introductions from our perspective, so we know, you know who we are. I guess I'm Adam Lightbon, I'm the chairman of the Ramsey County Commission here. We've got
I'm Lisa Deesa.
Ed Brown?
Lane Volk.
Jeff Frith.
and Candy Christopherson, our auditor, is up here and she's busy, so. she's
Hi,
gonna take
Megan.
one. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks very much for having us. Nice to meet you all this morning.
We'll let you jump right in.
Okay, sounds good. So good morning, everyone. My name is Megan Olson. I'm a consultant from Gallagher. I've been working closely with Brian and Candy throughout this study. So I'll kind of walk you through the presentation that we have to go through, kind of what we did, what our recommendations and findings were, and then see what questions you might have here at the end. I will be eventually joined by a principal consultant on our team, Mike Verdorn, who also kind of oversaw and worked with me on this project. I think he's just tied up on another meeting right now, but to keep us on track, I can jump in and get us started. Also, I guess just a little bit more background on Gallagher. We've been working almost exclusively in the public sector for over 35 years, nationwide. However, Mike and myself do a lot of our work specifically in the Midwest, Minnesota, North Dakota. Had a good chance to partner with a lot of cities and counties in North Dakota, as well as the Association of Counties. So just had a pleasure of partnering and seeing the different issues and concerns and working through those projects. Mike and myself are also both based just outside of Minneapolis here. So I will share my screen with our presentation. All right. So today I'll walk through kind of the background on the study, the pieces of going through the compensation study, the methodology around that, and then our findings and recommendations. So Ramsey County contracted with us. We're the public sector practice within Gallagher's human resources and compensation consulting practice. As I mentioned, we have extensive experience in the public sector, specifically doing compensation studies very similar to this one. So what we set out to do were conduct a custom survey to collect relevant market salary information for those other local municipalities for which you're competing for talent. Use that information to create some recommendations for how can we develop a framework or a salary structure that can be used by the county to ensure both internal consistency of where positions are placed, but also external competitiveness with the relevant labor market, and then ultimately develop recommendations for those salary adjustments to say what might it cost to ensure that alignment with the market and getting positions into the recommended salary structures. So on the custom survey, getting further into what that looks like, we developed a custom survey in partnership with the project team to collect relevant compensation data from those comparable municipalities, work together to look at who are those relevant comparator organizations. Upon decision of those organizations, develop a survey instrument, sent that out to them. They follow up emails, phone calls to collect that data, make sure we understood the data as we received it as well. So ultimately surveyed 20 organizations, 13 of which were able to participate. So that is over 60% participation rate. We would consider that a good participation rate. Anything, between 50, 60 plus % participants is really good. I mean, as much as possible, of course, you would love if everyone can participate, but just different capacity, timing, etc. Not always the case. So we did have 13 of the 20, which is a good data set to do our analysis and work with and be confident, in our ultimate recommendations. So again, we phone calls, emails to survey participants to conduct that survey. Once we got the data, we were reviewing, asking follow-up questions if we had any questions on the matches or any data looking like anomalies, resolving those questions through discussions with the participants to ensure that, again, we understood the data that we received. So we looked at the data that we collected, which was salary range, as well as actual salary data at different points in the market. So we looked at the 25th, 50th, and 75th percentile of actual pay and pay ranges. So the 25th percentile, just for context, is kind of a point in the market where 25% of data falls below and 75% of data falls above that point. So it's kind of lagging the the market if you're setting at the 25th percentile. The 50th percentile or the median is really the middle of the market where you have 50% of data falling both below and above. So that's kind of the point where you're meeting the market and considered fully kind of competitive market rates. The 50th percentile is where majority of organizations are typically targeting themselves. They're typically establishing their structure at the 50th percentile to say, we want to meet the market. And then finally, the 75th percentile, this would be considered leading the market, where 75% of data is going to fall below that point and 25% will fall above. So we analyze at those different points. We also have to follow different guidelines such as U.S. Department of Justice, Federal Trade Commission. As we are getting responses from those 13 organizations, they are responding to all the county jobs that we included in the survey. As we review, clean that up, we need to have 5 data points per job in order to conduct analysis and draw conclusions for that particular job. So we need at least 5 separate organizations to report an appropriate job content match in order to be able to summarize that. So we had 29 jobs in the survey, 19 of those we had at those 5 data point thresholds. So the other 10, it was just either other organizations, they just didn't have a good content match for those other 10 jobs where we had at least 5 data points. In addition to reviewing for enough data points, we also did a couple or some adjustments to that. So looking at the labor market, the different counties that we surveyed, for the most part being, adjacent to Ramsey County, but some of them going a little bit broader. So we applied geographic differentials to ensure that all of the data was reflective of your local labor market directly. So to do that, we used the Economic Research Institute to identify appropriate geographic differences. This is a commonly used source. ERI is in compensation. It's widely used and highly regarded in terms of providing different salary data as well as the geographic adjustment data. They have a proprietary method and economists on their team that are calculating these cost of labor differences based on geographic location. So we have access to that database. For example, we would say, hey, we're surveying Grand Forks. Maybe their geographic differential is 0.98, which would mean that Grand Forks data is decreased by 2% to reflect the county's local labor market. You may also have some counties where maybe the factor is 1.03, where you'd be increasing then that data to reflect your local labor market, so that we can normalize all of the data to the labor market there. So those are just some of the adjustments that as we're cleaning, summarizing the data, making sure we're comparing on an apples to apples basis for making our eventual conclusions. So again, we combine the data at those multiple percentiles in the market, but then compare that back to the county. So when we're comparing that, and we'll start seeing that here in a couple of slides, we have different frameworks to identify what those different comparisons mean. So plus or minus 5% is generally highly competitive range. So if data is plus or minus 5% from the county data, highly competitive. Plus or minus 5 to 10% is considered competitive. Plus or minus 10 to 15% possible misalignment. And then more than 15% above or below, generally considered misalignment. So these are the frameworks for what different percentages mean when we start comparing the data that we collected and adjusted back to the county. There are other factors that can help explain. You might have a job that is with more than 15% above the market. That doesn't necessarily mean there's an issue that needs to be corrected. There are other factors which we'll get into that can help explain. Like, yep, that makes sense that we are paying that position more than 15% above the market. So this is what the comparisons were. We looked at, again, the actual base salary, so what people in the market are actually being paid as reported by those organizations at the different percentiles. We also compared the salary range minimum, midpoint, and maximum. So that's the county's current ranges compared back to the market ranges. So we're looking at the light blue is actual salary, the darker color is salary range. So you can see at the 25th and 50th percentile, the county's salaries overall across those 19 jobs with enough data are above the market. And let's just look at the 50th percentile, for example, 11% above the market, which based on our thresholds is considered potentially misaligned. Basically, on an overall basis, county is paying higher than the 50th percentile and is actually quite close to the 75th percentile, so kind of leading the market in terms of actual salary. Salary ranges are overall highly competitive at both the minimum, midpoint, and maximum, ranging from a little bit below to right on at the range maximum. So you kind of have those two pieces of context where it's like, hey, we know our ranges are right on. The folks' actual pay is further above the market, which can be due to a number of factors. So again, the 50th percentile is going to represent the competitive kind of market point, the middle of the market. It's the target pay level for majority of organizations. When you think of the 50th percentile, a person in a position might reach that 50th percentile point between like 5 to 10 years in their position. So when you join a position, I always use an accountant as an example. I don't know why, it's just my default. But if you join as an accountant right out of school, you're not going to be paid exactly at the 50th percentile right away. As you are gaining experience in that role, you'd be paid closer to, the range minimum or the market 25th percentile. So if you have a brand new person in a position, that's where I'm talking about those other factors can help explain those larger differences. It may be understandable that they are more than 15% below the 50th percentile as they still learn the skills in the position. Conversely, if you have someone that's been an accountant for 15, 20 years, it's very likely they will be more than 15% above the 50th percentile of the market. So as we're looking at the county salaries overall being 11% above the market, potentially misaligned, there could be that factor that, yes, maybe we do have a lot of highly tenured folks, and it makes sense that they are further above that 50th percentile position. The other thing is that ultimately, what we're looking to do here is how can we leverage all of the data that we collected from the 13 organizations across the 19 positions to develop a framework that the county can use to place positions and progress positions through the pay ranges. We're not trying to make one-off adjustments based on each single data point for a particular job, because you're always going to have nuances within that. So I think the next step is these salary structure options, that they how can we use all this data in a comprehensive fashion to develop some framework recommendations for the county. So to do that, we developed one option, we kind of call it 1A, 1B because they're very similar, it's just anchoring at a different point in the market. So option 1A is we anchored the proposed range midpoint of the grade, of the lowest grade in this option, using our lowest market 50th percentile data point. So we took the 19 jobs that have data, looked at, sorted the market 50th of actual pay from low to high, took the lowest number, and that's our anchor for the structure. From that anchor point, we calculate midpoints above that using a defined midpoint differential. And then we calculate range minimums and maximums around the midpoint using a defined range spread. So what this allows is to say the middle of your structure is anchored in this case at the market 50th percentile, which is a very common target point as we've been mentioning. And then around that midpoint anchor point, you have range minimums and range maximums to allow the county to differentiate pay based on what we were just saying on different experience levels, could be based on performance levels, based on the strategy and future use of it, etc. But it provides that flexibility to understand that not everyone in the same position is necessarily paid the same, because they can have different levels of experience and things that they bring to the table. So that's option 1A. We'll show you a table of it on the next slide to kind of help visualize. Option 1B is very similar. It's just that it's marked at 75th percentile data point. So if the county were to go with this option, basically it would be saying that we are setting our structure to lead the market. We are leading the market by setting ourselves at the 75th percentile of the market. But again, the process is the same, using the lowest 75th percentile data point, calculating ranges around that and midpoints above that. But here's a visual of option 1A. So 1875, this was a number directly from the 19 benchmark job data points. That's the lowest 50th percentile data point. We calculate minimums and maximums around that using a 44% range spread, so they have flexibility to pay within that range. And then we calculated midpoints above the 1875 using consistent midpoint differentials of 8%, which is common within compensation guidelines, anywhere between 5 up to 10, maybe even 15%. So we're kind of right in the middle there in terms of what that differential should be. You want to create enough difference so that there's not this, you move to a new grade, it doesn't really feel like a difference, but also you want to have a not too wide of a gap to where it's difficult to manage and maintain. So that's what it looks like with 14 grades overall. Option 1B will look very similar. It's got 13 grades within it. Again, the 1941, that's the market data point, but it's the 75th percentile. So this one is anchored at the high points in the market. Within both of those salary structure options, we created steps so that the county can maintain that process. I think if there are pieces of what the county is currently doing that has worked, I think that's always valuable to retain that where it makes sense. So we looked at, again, the 44% range spread. We calculated 25 steps between range minimum and maximum, used a defined percent between steps, wherein the steps at the start of the scale are a larger percent difference. So we kind of retain the current step model within the ranges to help progress people through the scale. Then we get into kind of the dollars of it. So we looked at two different options for placing people into the proposed options. The first one is just place employees into the closest next step. So employees with salaries, in this case, so for the most part, everyone is getting an adjustment in this option because it's what is their current salary, and based on that, what is the closest new step to their current salary to ensure that everyone is falling on a step. So if someone's salary is currently $18.25 and step 3 is $18.30, they would be placed on step 3 at $18.30 and get a small adjustment. Just the only folks that would not get adjustments is if their salary is already exceeding the new range maximum. So we're not reducing their salaries or anything like that, but it would say there's not an adjustment to get them into the scale. Option 2 is always going to be the more costly option. So this is where we looked at how far are people currently into their range, and let's ensure that they are still that far into the new range. For example, if an employee is 60% through their current range, they would be placed at least 60% through the new range, but then just one step further to say, if we place them 60% through the new range, are they on an exact step? So again, ensuring that everyone is falling on a step. So these are the dollars associated with option 1A, which is the 50th percentile. So the bring the closest step, again, is going to be the less costly option at about 0.64% of current salaries. Option 2, where we're maintaining placement in range, is just about double that particular cost. But I think overall, when we're doing these types of models, oftentimes with maintain rate penetration, is quite a bit higher than 1.2% of salary. So I think that goes back to the fact that we saw that currently actual salaries are overall leading the market. Then the next slide here is the dollars for option 1B, which is the 75th percentile. So naturally, the costs are going to be higher. You're setting yourself at a higher point in the market in this case. So those were kind of our methods, findings, etc. So as far as next steps, looking at selecting a salary structure option, whether you want to set yourself at the 50th with option 1A or the 75th with option 1B and lead the market in that case. Look at the implementation option that makes the most sense from just a dollar standpoint, strategy standpoint, etc. to get folks into those. And then on an ongoing basis, we have a framework now that can be used to place positions that may, as new positions may be created, have a grade structure for as positions change to see if they need to move into a higher grade based on what other positions are there. So you got the framework in place, but then on an ongoing basis, ensuring that the structure is adjusted as the market moves. So a study like this is always a snapshot in time. The market is constantly moving. So we typically recommend on an annual basis, adjusting the structure by a movement trend factor to remain competitive with the market. Typically that's anywhere from 2 to 3% to move the salary structure. This year it's looking more around 2.5% projected. In addition to that, having a comprehensive study like this one about every 3 to 5 years, which is just a more detailed look into, hey, on an annual basis, as we've been adjusting the structure by, anywhere from 2 to 3%, has that kept us in the position we need to be, or all of a sudden have our peers kind of adjusted by more than that, and now we're a little bit further below. So just a detailed kind of check on those annual adjustments that are made to ensure that the structure remains competitive with the market. So with that, that concludes presentation and open it up for any questions.
Okay, excuse me, thank you for that presentation, very thorough. Lots of stuff to digest there. Any questions, I guess, from the commission, that you popped through your head while we were listening? I think everyone looks like they're kind of got run over by the deer in the headlights here. A lot of information. So essentially what you're saying, Megan, I guess I have two questions, or not two questions, but a question then. So when we're anchoring, so we have to make the decision to anchor at either 50 or 75 and then make a decision about how we're going to set the steps or how we're going to set the market penetration off of the current employees. So are we essentially setting the structure off of a market penetration of 50% at like year 7? Is that kind of what the thought process is? Like you said, between 5 and 10 years is where we usually hit that 50th percentile. So is that kind of what these structures are based off of? Because that's kind of what we used in the past. I think we always try to shoot for 50% at year 7 or something like that.
Yeah, that would be correct. I believe I followed what you're asking. So we have the midpoint in option 1A is anchored at the 50th percentile, and we retain that same step structure. So yeah, I believe it was around, step 5 where people were reaching that midpoint, which reflects the 50th percentile.
Okay, yeah, that's exactly, thank you. That's what I was asking. Okay, any further questions?
Did the compensation include, or comparison include the benefits and differences between those between counties?
That's a good question. This is strictly salary, no other benefits, correct?
Yep, that's correct. Strictly salary.
And that's something we've always kind of taken into account too, considering we have a very good benefits package, so with retirement and with health insurance.
Megan, overall, when you look at our wages here in Ramsey County, we're fairly hitting that 50 percentile already, right?
Correct.
So I thought, I was looking at it right. I just wanted to make sure I was looking at it right, because when I looked at 75, I was like, I'm not looking at it backwards.
Yes.
I could easily do that.
Okay, further questions? Okay, hearing none. If we have any further questions following the meeting, can we reach out to you? And I think at least in my opinion, from our perspective, I think it's probably reasonable to table this for a meeting to digest everything we've heard today. See if we have any questions that come up, and then maybe act on it, coming forward, maybe the next meeting or whatever, because I think it's worth some time. I think we have a question from our district health director.
Great. Will we get a copy of the slides so we can just kind of go back over them?
I think, Megan, would it be possible to get a copy of the slides? Okay, we have the slides here, so we can pass that on to some of our other,
Thank you.
department heads are curious at looking at them, so. Yep. Okay, no further questions. I guess if anybody has questions, we'll reach out to you if that's okay, Megan.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine.
All right, we appreciate it very much. Thank you for the presentation. Have a good day.
Thanks for your time this morning. Have a good day.
Thank you. Okay. We'll let them close up here.
I've sat in a handful of meetings and a lot of it still is just like it still kind of goes over your head, but you get the gist of it, when you look at the numbers.
Yeah, just now that we don't have a long discussion following.
I think a lot of this, when they say the 5-year to 10-year gets you to pretty close to that 50 percentile, and you look at the whole big picture. And if you bring someone on, if someone has 0% experience, like zero experience, and you're bringing them on, we're not out of the ballpark starting them at that lower. And that's where you have to take in consideration. If someone's coming on 4-year degree, and I'm just using this, say we use one position, a 4-year degree, and they have 10 years experience, that's where you need to decide where you put them in that step when you bring someone on, But as far as you look at our thing, our big picture, we're not out of the ballpark at all.
No, I think in looking in, like you said, seeing all the numbers and now hearing the presentation, we're in the ballpark of where we should be. We're competitive. We're actually a little, not leading the market, but we're right in that ballpark of making sure we're taking care of our employees. But we still have to make some minor adjustments specific to, the overall structure of, we have a few that we're behind and a few that we're ahead, and that's fine. But we just have to make some minor adjustments. But yeah, overall, I think we're in good shape in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, I think the options are, well, first of all, don't do anything. Number 2 is creating the grades that they're presenting and, moving the 30+ positions we have, I think it's 30+, positions into each of those grades, and that's where it'll create that adjustment. And that's kind of where the 16 comes from, is really not monkeying with the salaries, but getting these positions in the correct grades, and then the adjustments would be made with those particular positions to get them in the right steps, so they're appropriate for where they're at for tenure and those types of things. And then obviously the other steps is like making those adjustments to become above market. So there's basically 4 or 5 options on the table, and not doing anything is one of them.
I think if you look over at we have all our steps. And I know I've heard that several separate different meetings where it's like, we have to grade our steps to different. And my agreement was never with that, because when you bring an employee on, let's say you got steps 1 through 15, that employee come on knowing that eventually they're gonna get to step 15 and they're gonna max out. And most of those employees that get to that step 15 are probably at 25 years or more. And if you look over years past, if you look at over the wages or the percentage of increase that has been given by this commission has been very good. And that's what's keeping us in the stronghold for those people that are at that step 13, step 14, you know. Because you could get carried away if you move them steps into 25 steps. You could really get carried away and never be able to stay with the market. Like you get way farther ahead of the market. As long as the percentage is always there, you should always stay within the market. That's how the state and the county or even the city, if you look at the step, that was the whole reason behind those steps, so that you can stay a little bit ahead of the market. And a lot of people don't understand that time over a good evaluation, like I was telling Steve, that's why you need to have that noted in that evaluation. If you have an employee that came on with no experience at step 1, but they're performing at step 4, that's why it needs to be in that evaluation, so that you can get that individual to step 4. Because there's gonna be some people that come on with absolutely no experience, but when they start working for you, they're at that level.
Well, and it's always been open.
Oh, and the thing I look at, and I talked to Brian about this, is every county, and I wish they more employees or more elected or department heads would have been involved in this. Because when you compare county to county, I do more in my county than like Walsh County or, you know, everybody does a different job descriptions in each county. So this one does this over here, this one does this over here. I mean, I think that maybe we should have been more involved in this, or maybe had a chance to talk to these people.
And we knew when we hired this wage study, we knew that this could come to them. We had talked about that. We knew that just because you do a wage study doesn't mean it's gonna be a perfect situation.
I understand that, but it comes to a part, we didn't even get a chance to tell her exactly what we do in our office.
Oh, right.
You know, I'm talking on the treasurer side now, and,
I think,
you know, we didn't get a chance to talk to her or explain, this is what I do every day, this is what I take care of, this is the $1 million that I take care of.
well, I had talked to Brian about this the other day. I've been sat on a wage survey. I'm gonna tell you, when they come in to do a wage survey, they never contact the employees. They totally go off a job description. So
No,
if
yeah.
your job description hasn't been updated,
Well,
it can hurt you when you do one of these surveys, right? So as an employee and as management, as a board, sometimes we need to sit down and we need to either add or take away from a job description. You know, because a job description can tell it all. If the job description is lacking, like you're saying, that can
exactly.
hurt you on one of these surveys.
And I don't know, like, okay, so Jackie sits in my office, she's a deputy auditor treasurer. Where did we get all those comparables? I look at the screen of all the different counties, and where did we get that comparable in those counties?
That Jackie's position may be one of those that didn't match.
So how did
I
it,
recall.
so we didn't match, so how do we justify?
Right, then you don't get one of those. Because she said that you had to have a 5 before they could.
And I-
It was basically a adjustment, actually look at it. They only had 3 they weren't look at.
Right.
And that's why it was really nice out of all the counties that there was, 19 out of 27. Could you imagine if there would have only been 12? Now it even makes that number smaller.
And we kind of compare, and now between the treasurers, is how many statements you're responsible for. You know, that's how we compare. Like, I compare us to Walsh County in
Basically,
some
the
way,
size
because
thing.
size-wise, I mean, no, not Nelson, not Eddie, not, you know, because
Right.
they're like a fraction of us.
Trying to be fair.
Exactly.
I mean, I get where you're coming from. The thing I would say is that regardless if you, it's kind of it's no different than being a a deputy in Nelson County versus Ramsey County, you know you're gonna get more work in Ramsey County.
Correct, correct.
So there should be some increased compensation, but at the end of the day, just because you're doing twice the work as a deputy doesn't mean you're gonna be getting paid twice as much. You know, so there's gotta be, and I agree that there has to be a basis for where did the comparables come from and how did those comparables work off of job description? You know, I would assume in that situation, they were gonna go back and look at job descriptions off of those 13 participating counties and try to find things that matched up as close as they could. Are they gonna be perfect? Of course not. But, you know, we gotta start someplace, I guess, is where it comes down to.
Correct, and I agree with that. I just wish that we would have had more involvement as far as talking maybe to these people, because we could have done it over what we just did now. So they know what exactly we do
It's a good point.
and how much money we handle, or what Beth does, or, you know, different things like that.
I agree.
It would give them more of a comparison.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I mean, when you look at the big picture, we're paying them $30,000.
Is that what we're paying them to do this study?
It's like 26.
Six, I think.
And they did receive the job description we had on file. And
And
from
when's
my
the last time
knowledge,
they've been updated?
to me, it looked like it was from 2018. They were updated, that's what it looked like to me, just from the
And to
dates.
be honest with you, that's not terrible.
Yeah, that's
I mean, you
within the
think about-
ballpark.
Yeah,
Yeah.
every 5 years, you probably.
Well, and maybe it should become standard practice going forward that the department heads take a look at each job description every year or every other year, just to make sure that, you know, because whenever you have turnover, you know, or somebody new come into a job, those descriptions are gonna change according to, you know, if you take something off that new person's plate and put it onto somebody that's been there for a while, or technology changes, all kinds of things, so it probably would be beneficial going forward if they at least look, you know, just a glance, just check it over, double check it, revise it real quick if there's any
At
changes.
least 3 years ago, I wish.
Yeah, within a certain time frame, but 2018 means that we're at least not horrible. We're in the ballpark. It's a constantly evolving thing to try to stay on top of these things, and we hadn't done a wage study for 10 years plus, maybe 8, something like that. I think right when I came on the commission, there had been one done previous to that, so it's been 8 years though.
And I think the end of that conversation was the fact you brought up that everybody receives full medical.
Yeah.
My God. I know there's not a handful of other counties in this state that hand out full medical. And I might only need 3 feet.
You're correct, yeah.
I think I am which ones they are, so. McKinsey one, I know that. I don't know of any else.
That's
So that kind of ends the conversation for everything, and another thing, we can't raise our budget.
And Megan said that wasn't taken into consideration.
Right.
It's just straight salary.
That kind of ends the conversations.
A lot of, I mean, we're very lucky that we do that.
I think we're pretty fortunate to be that close, really, with the wages.
And if you wanna compare up this public employment to the private, it's unusual that there's a cost of living increase for the private sector. I mean, there's. not-
Especially at 4% that we just.
There probably was more private industries given cost of living this year, just with the nature of the economy right now, but.
Yeah.
We did a good job when we budgeted it here, so.
Well, I think we're right in the ballpark. There might be some minor adjustments here and there, and that's where we have to look at these numbers and see if we can make minor adjustments accordingly. But I think it's good to see for a couple things. One, it shows that we've been aggressive, but aggressive in a good way, to make sure that we're keeping our employees within the ballpark where we should be. And two, it gives the employees some peace of mind knowing that, okay, we're being taken care of. And you know, and I understand, you know, medical has to come into it as well, but at the same point, we're starting to see that, especially with this newer generation that's starting to come into the workforce, they don't give a rip if they got full medical. They plain and simple.
No, I agree with you.
It's all about how many dollars do I have in my paycheck at the end of the day to go buy food? It's just that simple, and I hate that. I mean, but I understand where they're coming from. So we have to have a balance in, and maybe, you know, some of it all changes all of a sudden when you get to, you know, mid-20s, late 20s, you go, whoa, boy, full medical is a fantastic thing. A couple kids show up and all of a sudden it's a pretty doggone good deal. I realize that.
So kids are on their parents' plans until they're 20, 18 to 26.
For another term.
I might have missed this at the beginning or during your conversation, but what brought about having the wage study done period, or is it just something you do every so
We hadn't
often?
done it in 7 years.
Yeah, we had timing in terms of we hadn't done it in a while, and we'd had some questions from different employees over the years about, are we where we should be type of thing. We thought, well, it's probably beneficial to give peace of mind from both sides of the equation to
The city just completed one recently.
just try to stay competitive in the marketplace, basically. And I think we all, at least I had the inkling that we were competitive because we don't have a lot of turnover, which means that we're probably in a pretty good place. But it's always good to have that information at your fingertips to say, hey, we're where we should be.
Because if you're not competitive, we probably wouldn't be fully staffed.
No, and we've continued to stay fully staffed, generally speaking.
Is part of that range, based, that you're, at 75th percentile, basically, the 11% above 50th.
That's sort of 60.
Yeah, is that partially due to the tenure of the employees that are here already?
Partially is gonna be.
I would venture to guess, and that's where it's nice that they have a delineation per employee and per job description, because we're above because we have so many quality tenured long-term employees.
And one thing that I liked about it when she said that, so the new employee just came on. It should be really easy for the department head to explain to them now. If you look at 5 years from now, you're gonna be at a huge jump compared to what is out on the market. Especially if you came into the workforce with zero experience. That's huge.
Well, and it's always been at the discretion of the department head, and correct me if I'm wrong, that if we brought somebody in that had previous experience, that you could say, okay, well, obviously, we're not gonna start you at 12, but we can start you at a 3 or something to try to give them a comparable wage in that structure,
Now
and
we're looking at 2 years to get to that.
so it's,
5 or 10.
because it's no different than, can I use you as an example, Candy? When Candy became the auditor, obviously, she had never been the auditor before, but she'd been a deputy auditor for, 20 years previous to that, so we obviously had to take that into account. You're taking on new job descriptions and duties, but at the same time, you have a ton of experience in the office, so we started you at, a 7, I believe, so already above midpoint, basically, or at midpoint, because it was, there's a reasonable number that has to be there for that experience that comes in. So, and that was just a discussion at this level, but that's the discussion that happens whenever we hire somebody at a department head going, okay, if this person has previous experience, where do we start them at? Within reason. Okay, further discussion, I guess, we have one more question
I'm
from
sorry,
District.
just
No, you're
one
right
more.
ahead.
So she did mention that some of the information that you needed to provide was the job descriptions. Is there any other information that you provided for them to?
Every employee's salary, the length they've been here, job descriptions. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, they have they have our current salary structure, our steps, where everybody's at on the steps, what we've done in years past, basically, to try to stay up with COLAs and everything like that, so.
And just to add, actually, they were pretty close to completing a survey. Well, commission approved the new salaries for so this includes 2023, the new salaries for our employees too. So it's not like so we submitted.
I know when I was part of a wage survey, we did all the events that you said, and we went out to 5 different places. And I don't know, because the counties probably gave up that information pretty fluently, where a lot of times when we did it, we physically had to go to these places because they weren't giving us any information over the phone. Because they didn't want
This information,
like.
they're selling us this information, is what they're doing, right?
Kind of.
What do you mean?
But what I'm
$20,000
saying is when we did our wage survey, we physically had to go out and sit down with this CEO to make sure that we could actually look at the stuff. Where most of the counties, I'm sure, gave out this information.
Well, it's all
public.
public information, it's all public information, they're just basically drawing and compiling and working with whoever their HR is or whatever, and they're usually willing to work with them because it's public information, so.
One of the things in the future, Brian, I wanna throw this at you. I was just marking the ones that are elected positions here. There should actually be a separate survey for them. Because when they're running for office, they gotta put their own money into it. You know, and that would, I think over the whole state, we'd get a better perspective if we had, you know, like Candy's auditor's job. You know, what's the rest of the state auditors getting, you know? And I think they should use the entire state in that survey, you know?
And actually, there is getting to be a push, I think, more from our HR group and the state and probably maybe a couple other departments, but for the Association of Counties to do an overall salaries survey, like of all the counties.
For the elected officials?
Well, I'm sure they
All
would
the
be, I'm
employees.
sure, yeah, I'm sure they would be included. Right.
Well, if they could do a whole employee one every second year, then we could all avoid doing it ourselves and kind of build it into our structure. That would probably make a lot more sense.
Then again, it's some of those inequities and salaries throughout the state. You've got the oil side, you've got, you know, the east side, so. And with this survey, that was, the concentration was gonna be on this side of the state, if you were to look at all those counties.
Well, yeah, you look at the counties that replied and everything, and it's comparably sized counties. There's more probably in the valley, you know, Trail and Richland, but they have market differentials on the surveys too. So, I mean, it's a reasonable way to do it, because how are you ever gonna say this person does this perfectly compared to what that person does someplace else? I mean, you just have to try your best and find your way there. And
Yeah, it's informative, there's no question.
like I said, I think it's,
better than the last one we had.
yes, I think it's far more positive. Well, I remember the first year I got on the commission, I think you said something to the effect of, we want to be a premier employer. We want people to come work for us, because if we show people that we are going to take care of them and they want to come work for us, we'll get good quality long-term employees. And I think that's been bore out over the 8 years I've been here. I mean, we've got good quality long-term employees and we want to keep it that way. So, you know, we have to, but these numbers just show that fact that we've been where we should be.
And I'll throw this card on the table, I think both of us thought about doing away with full health.
Well,
But that's one way of getting premier employees.
it is, I agree.
When you give good benefits, you're gonna get quality people. And that's what we need, and people that stay a long time. But go back to the elected positions, I honestly think Association of Counties should be able to do that and come up with a good guide. And if they divide it up in thirds in the state, like the middle third, west third, east third, I think draw the lines and that's where we're gonna be.
They do collect, everybody's salaries.
They collect them, but they don't compare them to other private entities and things like that.
I guess I've never seen them, Kevin, I don't think I have.
You're right, they don't analyze them, collect them.
Right, yeah.
They just collect them and try to
They
get
just
as
collect
close as
salaries.
they can.
Is all they do. They collect the salaries of most.
Yeah, what are you paying your deputy auditor one or
Yeah,
what?
there's one.
And I've looked at that before, but it's tough, especially specifically for a county like ours, because we have a lot of single or two-person offices. Well, you can't compare a deputy auditor in our office to a deputy auditor in Cass County,
No.
Right.
because our job description is just so much different. So it gives you a ballpark concept of what they're paying, but it doesn't give you a clear delineation of, you know, because our deputy auditor, deputy treasurer is probably doing, well, you know, your
Well,
deputy
we
is
share
doing
one.
sharing,
We
you know.
share the one deputy.
Yeah.
And we've got smaller counties around us that have full-time deputies.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Well, and Jackie's knowledge base has to be pretty broad, considering she's doing essentially
She's
a half a job in each office.
exactly,
You know, I
exactly,
understand
and it
where you're coming from.
works, it works, I'm not saying it doesn't work, it works.
But we also have counties that are combined auditor treasurer,
Correct.
so.
It's never gonna be perfect, but at least it gives you a starting point to look at where you're
Right.
at. And I think that's kind of where we're at now.
Would have really appreciated their slide presentations before our meeting. You know, would have been easier to follow along on this. The spreadsheet is helpful or whatever, but I think,
Spreadsheet would have made more
sense. Yeah.
Yes. Well, and that's why I agree that the presentation, but giving the presentation, letting it simmer for a couple of weeks at least, sit down, look at it, think about it, shoot off any questions you have to either through Brian or to Megan directly, if we could get that information. And then we can have a discussion. You know, this is the preliminary discussion. We can have a full discussion at the next meeting on it.
You guys want you want the slides?
Yes, that would be fantastic. You could send them all.
Do you think you should let the other elected officials know, other department heads know?
Can we get the numbers too?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
Yeah, what we pay for the information, I think it's fine to share it with everyone and
Open
the
knowledge.
department heads, yeah.
Yeah.
Give them some, and if the department heads out there have any input or thoughts on it in the meantime,
Correct.
obviously reach out.
Yeah, let's get it out there, let's see what ideas we get back.
So we'll forward the slides and we'll forward the spreadsheet. That was sent and.
And we'll have to make a determination where the next commission will. Okay,
And I'll forward it to the supervisors and, if there's employees down the road that the supervisor can forward it to or.
yeah, if they'd like to see.
Especially the department heads and elected officials,
I think the department heads is a place to
Then
start,
let
they can take a look
let
at it.
it stop there.
Until it's official.
Yeah, cause then all of a sudden you get people going, oh, what's going on here, we haven't made a decision yet. But I think it's good to have some feedback from the department heads, cause they can delineate job duties and things like that too, so. Okay, I guess from there, we would need a motion to table it if we wanna wait to take any action on it until next meeting.
I'll make that, second.
We have a motion and a second to table, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Alright.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Very good, thank you. Okay, we'll skip back up, Kevin.
All right. Best news of the day, paper patches are starting this morning.
Hey,
Yeah.
all right, yes.
do it.
Yeah, Strata is doing it.
Nice.
The mix is coming out of the Grand Forks, so let's get it done.
I was coming up the road road the other day, had some 4-letter words.
I've been swerving around the potholes, so to say Benedict's Church for a while. It'd be nice to get it done.
Yes, thank you, Gavin, thank you.
So I'm not sure if we'll get that great big one south of Roarville done, but the three bad ones, the Doyen, the culvert, and then the bridge on, and the soft spots on.
Thank you.
Be good.
All right. North Dakota Telephone Company has a couple of right-of-way permits where they wanna put fiber optic cable in. The two, they're both bores, they're going underneath the road, but they'll be trenching in a ditch. So one of them on Ramsey County 8 by Webster, and the other one's on the military road by that new cell tower.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to allow NDTC right-of-way permits to put in fiber optic cable in, you said 2 spots?
Yep.
Webster and not on military road. Okay, further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
We got the stock order for our culverts from the True North Steel, and they sent the invoice for that at $60,032.44.
Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to, this is to actually pay them, okay? True North Steel, $60,032.44 for culverts. Further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, roll call please.
Brown.
Aye.
Pritt.
Aye.
Volk.
Aye.
Peace. Aye. Lightfoot.
Motion carries.
Okay, and we got the invoices for the culverts that we need to replace the 3 bridges. We had planned to replace them this summer, but we didn't get at it, so this is actually, wanted to get this out of this year's budget since it was budgeted for this year, so. And that's from True North Steel also for $57,587.50.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second to, pay with True North Steel for the culverts for next year's summer bridge replacement, $57,587.50. Further discussion?
My question on these is, we've already approved paying bills, correct? And those were listed in the bills. So we're just doing this again to
Since it's over $2,500.
a double check.
Yeah.
So we're approving it twice. You know.
Check out be good then.
Well. Yeah, but
I know what you're saying.
we roll call the paying the bills. I mean, they're listed in the highway bills. You know, Kevin's got a separate sheet under Ramsey County Highway. And True North Steel, $117,619.94. And if you take those two figures and that's what it comes out to, we've already paid this once. So, but, yeah, we can pay it again.
Don't send them 2 checks is what you're saying, huh?
Yeah.
All right, that's good.
No, just,
Kind of reaffirming that the county paying these bills.
yeah,
You culverts, right?
Good question.
For me, it's a CYA thing.
Yeah.
Can't slip it by in the bills,
That's all right.
Okay, further discussion. Seeing none, roll call please.
Brett,
I,
Deesep,
Aye.
Volk,
Aye.
Brown,
Right,
Lightfoot.
Motion carries.
I have a few more, and, we got invoice from J&J Striping for painting, lines on our roads. They ended up doing like 35 or 36 miles, and that invoice was for $44,618.02. So, I'd like the motion to pay J&J Striping.
see, now that one's not on the bill, so that one we can. I will go ahead and make a motion to pay that one.
Second.
I like it.
I totally get where you're coming
I like your redundancy, Kevin, but,
That's what Jeff wants to speed it up. He's ready to roll. Okay, so we got a motion and a second to pay J&J, striping for road striping projects this summer, about $44,000 and change. Further discussion. Hearing none, roll call please.
Brown,
Aye.
Deesep,
Aye.
Brett,
I,
Volk, Lightfoot.
Motion carries.
And then we had 2 invoices from the DOT for our share of the paving on Ramsey County 3. There should be one more payment left for that project. It'll be just under $3,000. These 2 total $11,843.44. So, motion to pay that.
Go to the-
Second.
Go ahead. Motion and a second,
That's okay.
to pay DOT for 23 paving. Further discussion. Seeing none, roll call please.
Deesep,
Aye.
Brett,
I,
Brown,
Aye.
Volk,
Aye.
Lightfoot.
Motion carries.
And just for a heads up on that, if we didn't get the little letter that says, where are you taking your local match from on this? I don't know why.
I had a question on that actually. I received an email from DOT about signing something, and I wasn't sure if it was something I was actually supposed to sign, or if it was somebody trying to scam me. So I wasn't gonna go on the old DocuSign and sign something. So I wasn't sure if they sent it to you and then it was also to me, because I figured if it's official, it's gonna go through you and not DocuSign.
Or me or her, one of the, yes.
Okay, that's kind of what I figured. I'll give you the email or show you who it came from and see what the heck it is. I didn't open it.
Yeah.
I just saw it and I was like, that doesn't seem like it probably should be coming directly to me. It should be going through the auditor or the highway department. So it's like, maybe they'll send me some, maybe the Prince of Arabia will send me some money.
Well, I know they changed how they.
Yeah, some she gets, some I get, but in any case, it's one of the 2, but.
Not consistent.
No. So anyway, with the letter, I don't know if they'll be coming later or not, but for now, we do not have the letter that says where our local match came from. Just so you're aware.
Because of the final payment of the media.
No, typically we pay.
Who sends them?
and normally you get them.
It's got the NDDOT on it, everything.
Yeah.
It looks official.
That's who, did it come like a .com? I got a couple from last,
That's Susie.
Susie's, yeah.
It came from Sarah Susie by a DocuSign.
Susie, yeah.
And then, but it came from the actual DocuSign.net, but it's got the NDDOT badging on it and everything. It looks official. So I don't know if it's real or not. So I figured, I'm not gonna review any documents until I ask somebody. Because I'm not signing it, because I couldn't sign it without an official signature here.
I mean, I even
So-
get scams from like, the Cavalier County Commissioner, and it's got his address and everything, that's coming from him. So, yeah, I don't.
Crazy.
I got one from FedEx the other day and I hit it. I had to call Steve, was awful. Yeah.
Well, that's the problem too, is you might, if it's something from something like FedEx, it might be
And it's a hit-
tracking number, and you accidentally
That's
hit
what
it.
it said, it hit tracking, so I hit the tracking number and no, it was,
Scam check.
Yeah.
Okay, back to Kevin.
Okay, Strata Corporation gave us an invoice for the chips that we got from, that we'll be using next year. And the cost of them was $51,150. So motion to pay that.
motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, got a motion for a second to pay Strata for chips, for next year's for next year's chip sale project for $51,000. You guys get done hauling all of them?
Yeah, we did.
You guys are moving up another highway quite a bit there now, so. Okay, further discussion. Hearing none, we're paying right now, so roll call please.
Brown,
Aye.
Frith,
Aye.
Volk,
Aye.
Lisa, aye, Lightfoot.
Motion carries.
And next, the construction engineering for the bridge replacement on our bridge on Ramsey County 4, we have to go through the selection process. So we need to advertise for engineering firms and then go through the selection. So I'd like a motion to go ahead and advertise for.
Excuse me. So we have a motion and a second to advertise for Highway 4 Bridge construction engineering portion. Okay, further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carried.
Yeah, last, go ahead.
Then you need to set a date for the, or can you basically just leave that up to Kevin?
Yeah, we-
Yeah, the paper is up in the air,
Yeah.
but it all depends on the
Right,
application.
yeah.
It's coming back though,
Yeah.
coming back locally.
Yes,
Yeah,
that was exciting news yesterday.
That'll
We
be
got
good.
somebody local bought the papers.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Oh, was, I didn't
Oh,
read
was
the
it?
paper, but I saw it.
Right, I
I
was
saw
calling
it
it
on Facebook.
yesterday.
That's
She put it in the paper, yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah, then it gets an e-edition now, so I was looking for it, but I'm not gonna buy a paper one.
That radio was not very fancy, that's for sure.
They had news, just nothing of Ramsey.
Yeah.
Or
They
was somebody
hired
else's?
Louise back too, so that's
Oh, did they?
interesting, yeah.
Oh. Cool. Louise.
Oh, yeah, Louise, yeah, yeah.
Do you wanna set up the committee members? To
Yeah,
review the
that'll
proposals?
be up to you guys. Who you want to review the
Proposals,
proposals?
do the interviews.
I think probably wait to do that until after the election season comes around to do it.
It is 21 days advertising.
Yeah.
I need 15 days advertising for this.
Which one did we pay for?
Construction bridge.
The
The
one?
advertisement, was
But yeah,
it?
you're right,
Engineering.
in December.
Yeah, it's already gonna be after the 1st of December, so we'll have to wait until probably the
What did I
second.
do guys on?
Yeah, you guys can do it. How many people we need to have on it?
Usually
Thanks,
two in the highway, usually you do two commissioners in the highway
You're welcome.
department, but like
No,
Nelson
we don't
County
need to
did
make
it.
it easy and we're gonna be here.
Okay,
You're resigning.
No.
Nelson County did they did their whole commission.
okay.
But you can do either way, you can have a committee or that reports to the commission or the full body.
Probably not gonna make a difference.
We can put non-commissioners on this committee? Is that what you said?
I generally pick another engineer, like say for instance, Nick Grassgard, somebody like that. I mean, that's just. Put a name out there.
Yeah, you can put whatever you want.
So,
Because they're just making a recommendation to the.
yeah,
commission.
so,
Yeah.
so we'll allow
No.
Commissioner Volk, Commissioner Frith, and Kevin to be the committee basically to overlook it.
That'll work.
Motion, Ed?
Sounds great. I'll make that motion.
Okay,
Second.
we have a motion and a second to appoint Commissioner Volk, Commissioner Frith, and Kevin to be the committee to overlook the construction engineering proposals.
Thanks for making the word for that motion.
Further discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries. And they'll just be bringing the recommendation back to the full commission and saying this is the person who did the company we think we should pick.
Yeah, so the firms will submit proposals, they'll review those, decide who they're gonna interview, and then interview the interviews, score everybody, write down their answers to the questions. And the rating. or
Have fun,
whatever.
guys.
It's not, they got templates, you can kind of spin through it, questions.
Okay.
Just time consuming.
I like to change
They do actually want the backup paperwork though, they can take notes during the interviews.
So the last thing I have is I set up the bids for a new payloader and a new skid steer. And it's, we're opening bids on the 18th. And that, just because of the way the paper advertising turned out, it turned out that way, but there's not another meeting with this group after that. I was hoping maybe this group would get together to award those bids, since you guys were on the process of approving the budget and everything else. But just a thought, we can decide at the next meeting or whatever, but
Something to think about.
that's all I got, unless you have something there.
Fair enough.
No, that was for the box project? That was for the box culvert, for the bridge project, you're talking about bids?
No bids for the payloader and the skid steer.
Okay, because those are, the construction for the box culvert is also the 18th. DOT.
Oh, the opening of the bids.
Yeah, but they'll have to review the review for DBE and all that stuff.
Alright, so that'll be the first.
So yeah, it'll be in December before you get here.
Very good. Any questions for Kevin? Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, unfinished business, ARPA funds, thought process on that. Crickets. You can hold one more meeting, or, the only thing I would say is, in thinking about it, is that we have, there's a portion of it is, some of it's not time sensitive, but some of the agencies that possibly could benefit from the funds are, waiting to know, so.
And I don't think that Roger got anybody, what was that for? The generator.
Generator.
He didn't get anybody to bid on it, I don't think.
No,
He is in contact with,
Oh, was he?
he was reaching out to somebody in Bismarck,
Okay,
or somebody that works with somebody in Bismarck to
Yes.
see if they would be
Yes.
able to put together a
the people
proposal.
that were at convention
okay.
forwarded
If he
to
doesn't,
somebody in
might-
Bismarck.
I think I have a contact out in Billings, Montana.
I think,
Oh, do
That's
you?
the
I
same,
That might be the
that's
same
the
guy.
same.
I suggested to Roger to go talk to Caterpillar. I mean, they do this all the time, so.
If he's talking to that
Well, what was
company
it?
at Billings,
I
Montana,
don't-
I know they do.
I think he got a bid, we have a bid from Caterpillar,
Like, by the way,
from a couple years back.
yeah.
But it was decided that we needed a construction engineer, and that's what we're bidding on, or that's what Roger had advertised on.
Oh, okay.
And that's the one that we haven't gotten any response from,
That's right.
so.
One, we have to engineer over a certain
Dollar amount.
dollar.
Yeah.
We got that
Is it-
threshold, so.
Can the state's turn it down if we need this construction engineer or not? Legally?
So what do the other
He'll tell you you will,
courthouses do?
Pardon me?
he'll tell you you need one.
I don't know.
Once it goes over that $100,000 mark, that you are required by century code to have an engineer.
What if you can't get one? Then what?
Well, it's,
Keep looking,
yeah,
go out into the world or whatever, I mean, you know what I'm saying?
there's somebody that does it, it's just when you're advertising in your local paper,
Oh, that's-
you know.
Go away from it.
It went out
Just
too,
give
but it could have been
Yeah.
nice, so,
Because it was in three. wasn't it?
since
No, it was,
through the North Dakota Newspaper Association pushed it out to all
Well,
the.
it did, that way.
Is that North
yeah,
Star?
we picked the Baker.
Yeah.
We kind of,
Well, keep looking,
Yeah.
keep looking.
Yeah, but at the end of the
That's all we
day,
can do.
we did the advertising, we did what we were supposed to do to try to get bids, nobody bid on it, so we have the ability now to go out and try to contact people that do it and see if they would be willing to put something together. So that's basically, oh yeah, we tried to get a bid, we went through the process to try to get a bid and nobody put a proposal together, so we can now try to reach out to different firms that we know that do this and see if they would be willing to.
We could ask Cap, or we could ask somebody, there's gotta be somebody part of the company.
Well, we could ask Caterpillar who they've had do other projects in the past and reach out to them to try to solicit a bid as well, yes. And I think Roger will continue to do
That'd
that,
be
yeah.
somebody, you know. whole country out there, they must have standby generators,
Oh,
a number of different places.
And it could be something where maybe the companies that do this, if maybe they're so swamped with work or something too, that they didn't wanna put a bid together,
Yeah,
it could be just about anything, so.
Well, and I'd like to, maybe the ARPA fund, if we could do something by the 1st of January, because I have this money tied up until December 31st. So I recommend maybe we.
Nothing would stop us from approving where we wanna do it,
Okay.
but it's
Just knowing that it can't be
Now.
parceled out.
knowing that we can't spend it until the 1st
Okay.
of January.
That's fine,
Yeah, like I said, it's.
Because
Okay.
we hadn't made a choice, so I went and I invested it, so that we could draw a little bit more money out of it.
That's perfectly fine, but
Yeah.
whether or not we wanna continue kicking the can down the road, so to speak, or do we wanna make a decision on how we wanna spend it or how we wanna allocate it?
Yeah, and I'm not gonna put pressure, I'm the one that kinda sat on the committee to delineate that, so I want the commission as a whole to weigh in on how they wanna do it, and we've pushed it simply because, we weren't sure what we wanted to do yet, but like I said, some of the, even if we can't cut a check till January 1st, but some of those organizations on the list, just knowing that they're gonna be in line, something like the Hope Center, for instance, is has a portion of it, that could be huge to them, knowing that those dollars are coming if we decide to do that. So, I'm fine with even pushing it another meeting, that's fine. It's just, I think at some point, not to say the next commission can't make a change on something, but I think, out of the 2.2 million, we're only appropriating $750,000 outside. And if those projects don't all come through, well, then the money just gets clawed back to the county and goes to whatever the county wants to use it for. So, I think it's a pretty good proposal, it's just a matter of what the commission as a whole wants to do.
What were the outside projects again?
What'd you say?
What were the outside projects on the list?
I don't have it in front of me, to be honest, but,
That's the top part of it.
Oh, nice.
School, park board, mobile
career exploration.
career
Oh, yeah.
exploration, City of Prairie for their siren, Heritage Center roof, Lake Region District Health for a pickup, Hope Center for food, rural fire rescue for a truck, and then siren project for radios.
And those are all, nonprofit entities that are somewhat connected to the county and, all good things. It's the way I'm gonna do this. Thoughts? I can't make a motion, so.
Sure you can.
That would be illegal.
No, you can recluse yourself as chairman
I could,
temporarily,
I could.
and
You're really getting deep in the Robert's Rules of Order weeds here.
yep.
I've sat on a couple committees where that's happened, and I've never been a fan of that. If you're running the meeting, just run the meeting and shut your mouth the rest of it.
The city of Prairie, they put in a grant, do they have to have that? Is that the- you know,
I don't
Do
do
they
that
have
for
a
sure.
deadline?
I don't know if they have a deadline, to be honest.
Well,
Like, sure. We saw paperwork showing what the cost of the new siren would be. I don't know if they put a grant in, I think that was the cost of it. The thought process was that we could work with the emergency manager to get them a grant, so they wouldn't need the money out of the ARPA funds, I think was the thought process.
The $9,500 is only to install.
That's the install portion. Okay,
Yeah.
there you go.
Because according to Chris, like a siren is like $30,000.
Okay.
So they're buying that.
Or a grant.
Well, there's money through the NDGES, to put up sirens. I mean, for the love of God, I mean, you got 100 and some people that live in Curry, a tornado siren would be a pretty
Yeah.
good thing to have, you would think.
In the conversation, it was just,
Well, I'm just asking.
it was just kind of sketchy
Deadline,
because
that's
it, like, it didn't all connect. Like, if you're gonna put up a siren, well, who's gonna set that off if there's something?
Well, I think
Because
to
it's
be
not
fair
gonna be
to
tied
everybody,
to the law enforcement side.
I think to be fair to everybody, Rick, kick this down the can, or kick the can down the road one more meeting. I'd like to see what's going on. That's what I suggest, and I'll make that one.
We got a motion to table for one more meeting. We have a second.
I'll second that, because I do have some questions on some of the things that are on here that I need answers for myself before I can.
I agree with that.
Quite reasonable.
My suggestion would be some of these in the top, probably all of them, come in and present to us.
Right,
You know, if you're gonna start handing out $250,000, it better be a pretty goddamn good project here.
yeah,
I mean, not just to throw together a thought.
yeah.
And I don't,
And I think some of those numbers, those applications were for even more than that.
Oh, for far more than that, yes.
But that's the numbers that you had whittled down and the committee had whittled down in order to try to make it
right, I don't know.
equitable for everybody and.
Well, and I think it might be beneficial too, if the commissioners as a whole wanna look at the background paperwork that was included with the applications, because for instance, the school one, it was actually really good. They had a lot of information about what they plan on doing, what the costs were gonna be, it was all delineated down. So,
I would like to see I would like that school come up here too, since they didn't get the money that they wanted. I've heard a lot of rumors that turning the money back,
as in,
their grant,
you mean the grant from the
for that
From
age
the-
center.
Katie?
I would like to know, I mean, I know it's rumor,
Well,
but I'd like to hear right from,
Carry that money for the egg center back.
they gotta come up with a certain amount. You know, they gotta have matching funds, are they willing to take money out of their
Well,
sick?
then we better get some people in front of us who can answer our questions.
I would just like to hear, because you know, Rumorville is a pretty.
I guess I haven't heard that, but
I'd rather have it come through Baki and explain to us. What do we have, where are
Well,
we
would you-
sitting?
would you like me to, oh, go ahead.
Someone must know somehow.
You may not be available,
Yeah.
but
Somebody's got.
Like you could write us a memo or something,
Yeah.
describing where they're at in the process.
we could get one of their school board members or maybe, a business manager or.
So would you like representatives of all of these, or just maybe the bigger ticket ones?
Well,
Because I mean, some of them are pretty self-explanatory, I mean,
Right.
a search and rescue or
this is
truck.
really gonna load up a commission meeting, but.
Well, and I think that was kind of the thought process behind the committee, was that we'd bring recommendations so we didn't have to do. So we could file through the paperwork and ask any additional questions if necessary.
Right.
Well, Elvina's here with her committee, and can you give us some kind of an update, Elvina, on how things are going with grants and stuff?
Actually, we have a meeting with Megan with Strength in North Dakota at 10 o'clock.
Today?
Yeah,
Really?
and she's gonna give us an update on where she's at, but, the grant process for the Auto Bremer Bank is December 6th, when we'll be filing that. As far as raising funds, we've sent out about 700 letters at this point in time to 4-H alumni and past leaders to see if we can get support from that group of people. Also, on the 22nd of October, we had our steak fry, and that was pretty successful. We served 300 steaks and burgers that night, and a lot of people took take-home meals to go home, and we had a board set up explaining our project, and it generated a lot of interest from the people that were there, a lot of questions, and from the people that I spoke with, I think there was a lot of good support, and I think we'll be seeing donations from quite a few people coming in. So that part I think is going pretty good. It was a really good night to be able to visit with people and explain the project further if they had questions and stuff. And the rural fire department cooked the steaks and burgers, and they did an awesome job for us. So I think we're on track going forward to get the project done.
Yeah, I attended that night, it was very, very good, yeah, good turnout, the building was actually crowded, you know.
Yeah, the
We
building
had a
was
good crowd.
packed.
And that was the idea behind it, to make sure the community knows what it's for and why. It's just not something, okay, this is what we're gonna do, boom, you know. And we had talked several times in our meetings, it has to be presented to the public, otherwise, if you don't get the public support, you can put a building up all day long and you gotta have that support.
Well, and the other thing that came out of some of our mailings is the Kiwanis Club invited us to their meeting, and a couple of the Fair Board members went and spoke about the project at the Kiwanis meeting, so that reached a whole other group of people to.
Sure.
Yeah,
And that's what it's gonna take, and that's what it's gonna take.
talk to those are the business leaders in the community, Kiwanis, Rotary, all of those, go talk to them and explain what the plan is and what we're trying to do, and I think that's a really positive thing.
Might get a check.
And our plan is to visit some of the businesses in town personally. And
Did you get put on the agenda for the city?
not yet.
Lee's here, I know we got a request here for a rescue truck, and Sean has talked to me about that some, but do you have anything else to add, Lee, about?
Answer any questions you guys might have. And I guess what the big push for the rescue portion of what we're doing out there is, we kind of came from the Dick Wolf accident, and we are pushing, I don't know if I say push, we're trying to get our guys more involved in the rescue aspect of it than just the fire. To this point, I think we've invested $20,000 in rope rescue equipment. We've had a class up here that cost us $7,500. We have a rope rescue team come up and coach us on, could be rope rescue 1 and rope rescue 2, job performance requirements, so the hands-on portion. Between us and the city, I think we had 6 or 7 guys take that class. We're incorporating the rope rescue more into our trainings. Rope rescue is the basic, doesn't matter if it's trench rescue, confined space. Rope rescue is the basis of all those rescue activities. So we're trying to get guys more involved in it. It's a 2-tiered or 2-angled project. It's either the rescue truck or the pickup and the trailer to haul this rescue equipment, because it's kind of bulky. And there's just no room on our extrication truck for it, so that's the process. Our gaming's really good right now, but it's always, if you can grab money from someplace else to put you ahead of schedule on what you want. That's what we're trying to do. I think in the past, 6, 7 years, we've upped our professionalism, more worried about the job, what we're supposed to be doing than, relaxing and having a beer or whatever. So that's where we're at, and it's, like I said, if there's any questions, it's something that won't just be for the Devils Lake District, there's all the little departments around us don't have what we have as far as our finances, and it's something that we're more than happy to include them in our training or go if they'd got a call, we went to Edmore when they had that truck accident here about a month ago already, it's just, the county's getting bigger as far as volunteers go, and there's less of us, so we're trying to get the mindset of being more than just double A rural, I guess.
Lee, what's the timeframe on potentially ordering this truck?
Is, once, if you were to tell us, we'll order it, the trailer's probably a year out. The trailer it's gonna be a multi-purpose, the front half of that trailer will be, hopefully a rehab unit, so it'll have a heater and air conditioner on it, so we can take it to scenes and rehab firefighters in there.
Sure.
Whether it's fire, rescue, whatever, the back half will be for the equipment. And that's if we, I think Sean found one just for a price, and that was in like West Virginia or something. So it would be basically I don't wanna say a one-off, but it'll be ordered, so it would probably, we ordered a fire truck and it's 2 years out.
Yeah.
So,
That's what I've heard on some of these rescue units on some of these different things, it's 2 years out on after you order it before it's delivered.
what they told us, it was 18 months after they get the chassis, and they didn't know when they would get the chassis, so. Cause right now, the only chassis you can get for a straight truck, Freightliner is the only ones building straight trucks right now. They're talking 2024 before you can get it international possibly, before you could even order one, so we went with Freightliner, but Freightliner only builds those trucks for the fire service at a certain time, the way I understand it. And when they get so many orders, they run that line, so every fire department building or fire truck building outfit will get X amount of chassis at one time, so we ordered that chassis in April, we haven't heard anything about if they even have it on the drawing yet, so. And then it would just be a straight Ford, Chevy, Dodge, whatever, one ton pickup with bullet.
Do you have an idea on how many radio replacements, siren compatibility things that rural fire is gonna need?
It would be right around 14 mobiles, and then we've got 10 radios or handheld radios on the trucks, different trucks. We've been trying to get everybody that's close to Devil's Lake with a handheld radio, because they're the ones that can get to the truck and trip the repeater to talk to the LEC to answer. If we get paged out, somebody has to answer back to the LEC, so we're trying to get them, so it could be 20 handhelds and 15 mobiles.
So are they similar in price, do you know, as far as what we're getting for the sheriff?
They're all the same.
All the same, so that's $6,000 or $4,000 per vehicle, and another $2,000 or whatever for a handheld, and.
And there's, you can go away from Motorola, but they're talking that if you go with a Kenworth or something like that, that they're having trouble.
Yeah.
Because Motorola is the one that's building the system. It's kind of like putting a John Deere planter on a case tractor. The Kenworths are a little cheaper, but then you're starting to hear rumors that they're having trouble, so
It's the best, that's not it, I mean, they're doing work for us, but it's a pretty good situation to be like Motorola right now.
Oh,
Because you name the price on the radio and the build out.
the last time that they, when they went to the narrow banding, they came out with new handhelds, they don't even service that radio anymore. You might find somebody with parts, but they don't make parts for that radio, and that was 5-6 years ago. It's just like, boom, they sold them, and then, 2 years after that was all completed, oh, we're not gonna service that radio.
What do we do next? Planned obsolescence.
Yeah. Did we vote on?
No, we didn't.
Okay.
You kept that, and I didn't want to
I'm
interrupt since you're asking questions.
No.
Well, it was good information to have, so.
It's great
I'm sure it
discussion
counts.
point and, yeah.
And I think at some point, Chris put in front of us the numbers on total radios in the county, and it was,
It was close to $1
that's
million.
800,000 something range, so. And I figured, we're not gonna be able to pay for everybody's radios, but rural fire has a revenue stream through taxation as well as gaming, and so the thought process behind is if we can help with the truck, maybe they can cover some of the radios and then take that additional radio money we got slotted in there to help out the other smaller departments that maybe don't have such as good of a revenue stream, so.
And the thing is, right now with the radios, and I think Steve has talked about it, Sheriff Nelson has talked about it, they're a couple years away from even getting the towers and stuff up around here.
Right.
And so that's why we haven't pulled the trigger on anything. I mean, we're setting money aside every year, knowing that it's coming, but where are you? You're in a dead area where if you buy it, your warranty runs out. If you don't have it, when something switches at the LEC, then you're behind, and they're supposed to be able to patch in the old radios with the new system, but with technology,
Who knows?
somebody pushes the wrong button and they're not talking to anybody, so.
Well, I think,
Quite the deal.
should bring some of these out, organizations in, I guess.
Okay, well, I can work on that.
Then, I mean, if we're gonna have to make a decision, well, then we better get some pretty hard information,
I can work on at least getting a few of the organizations into the next meeting, at least the bigger dollar figure ones, and if that's,
And if we could get a copy of the original application, that'd be greatly appreciated.
yeah, we got it around, so we can send it out. Of course.
So,
Okay, so we got a motion to table. Technically, it wasn't a debatable motion, but we talked about it. All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Both same side. Motion carries. All right, very good. And thank you for the information, though, I appreciate it. Visitors and delegations. We kind of heard from the visitors and delegations already. Anybody else have anything to add? Okay, portfolios, Commissioner Frith.
being the first of the month, we don't have a whole lot. The chamber had their annual meeting on middle of October. Can't remember the exact date, but it was very well attended out at the Elks, and celebration of community and business, and yeah, it was very good, and we got the new board members seated, and the new officer, I believe Aaron Wood is gonna be the new chairman, so, of the chamber. Airport still getting plans developed for the expansion of the terminal, using the ARPA funds that the airport received, so, continue with that. And boardings have been good, some months are better than before pandemic and other months are a little down, but, overall, we're sitting really good for the year, so hopefully that continues. The FAA was out there and did some on-site inspections, and with every inspection, you get a couple dings here and there. A lot of it had to do with, signs not being exactly the specifications or different things like that. It's supposed to be 7 feet off the ground and it was only 5, or, some minor things like that, but, really confident in our management team out there and our, board of directors, and so that's moving along good, so.
Okay.
Thanks, Lee.
From the water standpoint, the outlets were shut off the 24th of October. West End had developed a leak in one of the culverts, and so instead of trying to repair that and get it up and operational with this time of year, they just decided to winterize it and shoot for up and running next year. I know they did ask for a an RFQ, a request for qualifications from engineering firms for, to do some inspection on that west end outlet that's been in operation since 2005, expanded in 2010. Looking at some of the issues that they had this past operating season, whether it be electrical or leakages or different things like that, they want somebody to come in there and go through the entire length of that outlet to look at some of the equipment on there. And, you know, it was, and one of the biggest inflows on record, and we didn't meet average outfall or output from the outlets, which was incredibly disappointing. You know, I think they ended up with about 61,000 acre feet of discharge. Past 10 years, we've averaged about 124,000 acre feet, so less than half. And we had almost 600,000, or probably maybe even a hair above 600,000 once we get all the numbers computed, inflow from this past season, so.
Took 10% off that.
Yeah,
That's not great.
so did that every year, it'd take you 10 years to remove what came in this year. So
It's pretty full yet.
it's pretty full, and, you know, we've had one of the drier summers, falls in recent record, and there's certainly that has helped with the decrease in the lake elevation more so than the operation of the outlet. So evaporation has taken a good chunk of that 1.2 or 1.6 feet down from what our peak was in June. So other than that, that's about all I have. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Volk?
Lake Access Committee, summer fishing, stations have been closed, the clean stations except for the year-round. The piers were pulled, removing docks this weekend. And they put out the bids for the access of the lake in the winter time. As far as Lake Region District Health had a meeting, they removed the vehicle, they're gonna get rid of their vehicle and go back to mileage for employees. We talked about option of teleworking, that was tabled for the next meeting. They were able to fix a generator in Rugby, so they don't need to purchase that, and there's opening for the tobacco position. Recorder's office, when I talked to Bev, she said she already had that $18 an hour put in, and what's her name hasn't accepted the contract, and we had set up to $25,000 and it was $1 or whatever, but Bev already had it in her budget for $18 an hour, so she's working with Kate, so that hasn't been a signing thing. Like, she met her goal for us now, so basically it'll be at first of the year. Okay, and she starts again. Treasurer's office, and then the fair board sheet basically give us all the information on that.
Okay.
All I got.
Very good, thank you. Commissioner Brown?
Senior Center, they thank the commission very much for the dishwasher and the flooring, to have it in place. And, the jail, we heard about that, so everything seems to be going smoothly.
Okay, Commissioner Youssef?
I haven't had any board meetings because they're coming up. I've got Lake Region Heritage Center coming up. And the other ones are kind of done. Treasurer's office. Preparing for next year's taxes, collecting delinquent mobile homes, and we have quite a few of them left to collect. And then we've got a few delinquencies out there, and we'll be sending out the final notice now in about a week. Besides that, we're busy.
That time of the year.
That's that time of year. It's okay. We're good.
snowbirds are coming in and paying.
Or prepaying, yeah, they wanna get going, and I understand that. And I guess maybe the new commissioner board too will wanna probably, decide on having Bremer come in and do another municipal bond visit. I think that's important that they come in and do that.
Especially with interest rates.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's kind of okay, but, I think they should explain that to you so everybody has an idea what's going on.
I've got a lot of money sitting there, so it's, I think it's good at least every quarter or 6 months. You know,
And I've had a lot of other counties call me and ask me, you know, how much did you put in? So Walsh County just went with this, and they did 5 million in theirs. So,
But it's a good situation,
Yeah.
as long as we don't have to withdraw, you don't put in more than you need and
exactly,
gain interest on it.
exactly. And then we tied up the other CDs for 3 months until the first of the year, and we'll go from there. And the ARPA money, of course, will come out December 31st, and you guys can make a decision, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I heard the CD rates are pretty good in certain spots now, so,
Yeah, not bad.
but much better than they
The
were,
ARPA?
obviously, with interest rates going up.
Yeah, I probably got like 2.51, which
Wow.
We're on the week of
Yes.
we took it,
Spend money
yeah.
on another
Well, it's better than money market,
Pass this money on the other side, so.
yeah.
All right, thank you. From my perspective, yeah, since it's the third only, haven't had a whole lot. I missed my Forward Devils League meeting yesterday, I had to attend a funeral, but I was gonna stop and visit with Brad maybe tomorrow or early next week. There were a few, small, requests for, revolving loan fund and stuff like that on the agenda. I don't know what we did with them, but, nothing too big. It looked like it was a pretty straightforward meeting yesterday. I think we met, social services following our last meeting. Lots of stuff going on there. Well, don't want to belabor the point, hammer it, but child welfare, trying to retain and attract staff is a nightmare. It's not just us, it's a statewide issue. Rhonda's been keeping me in the loop in terms of, you know, the whole concept behind the zones was, you know, if another zone doesn't have as much work, you can get some help from them type of thing. And the problem is everyone is swamped right now. Everybody is down staff. It's not just us. I think she said we're down 5 child welfare right now, which is 50% of our staffing. So we have usually 10 child welfare, we're down to 5. And we actually, obviously in our zone, have a really heavy child welfare load comparatively to other counties. And some counties are stepping up and trying to help us, some other zones, but everyone is just swamped. Cass is swamped, Grand Forks is swamped, everybody's just swamped, so. Oh, I don't, like, visited with Rhonda yesterday for probably a half hour, and I don't know how it's gonna get better. You know, there's no employees out there, so, and you can't just all of a sudden train a social worker overnight. I mean, they have to have certain qualifications and all those kind of things, so. You know, they're trying to use some sign-on bonuses, things of that nature to try to attract staff. The problem that we're running into right now, is the compression issues on, talking about salary surveys, the compression issues on hiring somebody new into a position versus somebody that's already been there. You're getting in the situation where you can't hire somebody without taking them over the top of another position's pay grade. And people they're not willing to take the jobs at the dollar figures. So at that point, then you can use sign-on bonuses, you can do all that, but in all honesty, I won't try to drag the state, but this is one of the negative things that we knew when we discussed previous to this becoming a statewide payment structure was taking away our local flexibility, because like I told Rhonda yesterday, I would assume, I'm not speaking for the whole commission, but if we had problems attracting and this was a county problem, we would have said, what do we need to do to get it done? And now we don't have that option. And that's what's really frustrating. And she's trying to work through the system to try to, you know, but eligibility staff, I mean, people are just going different places because they can get paid more. It's just that simple. We've lost eligibility staff in Rolette County because of compression issues. I just saw the other day, somebody shared it on Facebook. you can get a CNA job at Annetta Parkview Health, $25,000 sign-on bonus, $20 an hour for a CNA. And I don't know what kind of parameters that was for how long you had to stay to get the sign-on bonus, but just seeing that number in front of you, if you're getting paid X amount of dollars over here and you can get paid to get trained, get $20 an hour, and get a massive sign-on bonus, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that it's tough to stay in that marketplace. We've had that problem in Rolette County, especially because the schools have more flexibility and they're taking eligibility workers and things like that to become paras, because they can get a good sign-on bonus and pay more than we do. So,
And work 9 months.
and work 9 months, and we're losing people to the state in similar positions because we have, you know, it's, when you're an eligibility worker, not eligibility, but child welfare, you're on the clock.
Yeah.
They can go work for the state 9 to 5, get paid more, and close their computer at 5 o'clock and be done. And the state's poaching staff from these zones, and the state knows it. I don't know if the state cares so much, but they know it. So it's going to be a discussion. They're already talking about how do they talk to the legislators about this, about the compression issues and everything like that. So we'll see what happens, but it's something to keep on the radar, that it's gonna be a continuing issue. And it, like I said, it's not just our zone, it's every zone in the state. It's not just social services, it's healthcare, it's everything else. My wife she was on a continuing education through Harvard, and they had somebody on that was talking about healthcare. And since the beginning of the pandemic to now, we've lost something like 20% of our overall healthcare staff in the country, and they're not coming back. So how do you deal with that going forward? You know, it's been essentially, we lived on a workforce that was close to retirement age, and they all just kind of said, you know what, I'm just going to retire. And we don't have enough young people replacing the people that are in that age bracket. So it's going to be an interesting job market for quite a while, I have a feeling. And it's going to be.
One thing you'll see is when they do this $25,000 bonus stuff, they're locking in.
Oh, of course they are. Yeah.
So you're not gonna get all this poaching.
Oh, of course not. But I'm saying that number, just, you can look at it and go, I mean, I get $20 an hour and that massive bonus, that's just, it's enough to pique somebody's interest to start looking at changing jobs. It used to be that employers could kind of name a dollar figure and know you weren't gonna get poached too much. Now it's the opposite. Employees have the power, and it's tough when you have a large entity with no flexibility. You know, if you're in private industry and you can't get an employee, you'd say, well, I can't get them for 14, I'm gonna put it to 18, I'll see if I get somebody.
Right.
You can't do that in this situation, and that's what makes it difficult.
Well, and you talked about baby boomers and retirement, and you look around the room here, and there's a lot of institutional knowledge that will be, and, you know, leaving when all of us decide to retire, and, you know, and, yeah, and I think everybody in that same kind of dilemma is that the institutional knowledge that you're gonna be losing with the retirement of individuals is gonna be huge. You know, Kevin, how long have you been at the highway department? 26 years?
You're not allowed to retire, is what he said.
39.
Years. Yeah.
And that all ties back to the concept of we need to be a good employer that people wanna come work at.
Yeah.
So that when we do get retirements of quality long-term employees, we can replace those individuals with new hires. So it's.
And it's been a good place to work, don't you?
Yeah, it's, you know, it
You know what?
has and it is, and,
One good thing that we have is we do have retirement, we have PERS.
you know,
We have that retirement, that is phenomenal, and we quit.
That's it.
If, unless you put away that you
Well-
could do it yourself, but you know what, at least people have something in it.
Well, and I agree with you in that statement, just talking about that specifically, is that's probably gonna be going away. PERS will probably be gone after this legislative session, there's a very real chance, because it came out in committee 9-3 to close PERS. So they'll close the defined benefit portion of it, so it will no longer be a pension, and it will roll to more of a 401k defined contribution. I believe was the two bills that they brought out of the committee. There's gonna be a lot of discussion about it. obviously.
Are they still discussing, removing local political subdivisions from the state?
I can't tell you that. I don't have an answer. I just saw it on the news that it came out of committee.
Because that was one of their ideas last legislative sessions, was they were gonna take a look at that as well. And that would really put a burden on local entities to try to, you know, because right now we have strength in numbers. With that, you know, not only pooling all the local political subdivisions, your cities, your counties, your park boards.
Schools are in their own plan.
You know, when you talk about,
In the state.
you know, when you talk about the PERS, if it goes away, hate to say this, but if they do that, you're gonna see a lot of people retire.
Well, to a point, and the thing that needs to be noted in the bills is that anybody that's in the plan now will continue in that plan. It'll continue to be funded, it's just new hires will be transitioned to the different style plan. But I think the discussion that's gonna be had at the legislature is, and I think that counties and everybody else that's on this plan, that we don't have a lot. We have to make our voice heard if we think that that's a good thing that we can attract and retain employees with. And maybe it's a deal where, you know, the county step up and say, we're gonna take this on, or whatever, but I think, at least in my opinion, in reading about how it's structured, and we sat through the presentation down at the Association of Counties, which was very informative from, I think it was Representative Shively, and I can't remember the other ones, but they were very informative and frank and honest about the discussion that was had. The interim committee that was set up to look at it didn't have any options as to what to look at. It was their directive was, how do you close the plan? And that's what they looked at. So that doesn't mean that other discussion is not gonna be on the table, it's just that was stuff that came out of that committee, because they didn't have the option of saying, okay, how do we fund the plan currently to keep it going its way? It's, how do you close the plan? Was the directive of the interim committee, and that's what they looked at. And that's the bills they brought out. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, but there's a lot of things that are gonna happen between now and the end of May that are gonna determine what's going on with public employees, and it's gonna be a big.
A lot of things will happen after the election.
Yes, a lot of things are gonna shake
Can they ever
out.
use that extra, like the money we're building up in the state of North Dakota, legacy, can they use any of that money
Yes, I
to
believe
turn over and?
But what they're saying is people aren't coming onto the jobs for the benefits. That's what they're
Correct.
seeing, that was a big thing. That is why you're seeing the change. That was the exact same thing we did on the federal government. And to be honest with you, it was a good change. It doesn't seem like it for like me, because I fell under the old plan. But for the new plan, for the new employees that are coming in and actually putting some of their own money, theirs is growing faster. Because it's a different market, where the PERS and my FERS, it's a safe one. They're not gonna reach out there to try to make money on this stuff, you're just gonna get
Well, you're gonna get a 4% or 5 or whatever, but I mean, that doesn't.
It's still something.
Yeah,
though.
but
like-
I agree.
It's kind of like a baseline of social security versus
But I think a lot of it was.
your own investment, you get more aggressive on it.
But a lot of it was is too many people were becoming dependent on, I'm just gonna get my pension and we're putting on the way. For the new plan, I think it's gonna give them a little.
Well, and it's just an interesting discussion, and how are counties and the other outside public entities that jumped in, that were essentially invited to become part of PERS, so we had strength in numbers. Now, we have to make our voice heard in terms of, you know, are we against, are we in favor, or, you know, and I understand the arguments, because, you know, the workforce is a lot more flexible than it used to be. People aren't staying in jobs for 25 years anymore. So having the flexibility to roll your account here and there and everywhere maybe makes sense. I don't disagree, but it is a recruitment tool, and it's been a really good recruitment tool for a long time. So it's just gonna be
We also have
interesting.
nationwide.
Yep.
I mean, that's been good, that we've hooked up with, if you participate. And it can be just small amounts, that's okay too.
All I know is I was closing my year-end books for my bookkeeping are October 31st, and I was closing up my books, and I hadn't looked at my retirement accounts purposely because I didn't want to look at them.
I know.
It was ugly. The balances were ugly. It's been an ugly year. So,
Not gonna do that.
no, so hopefully, I'm playing that game in my mind. Hey, I got some time. I got some horizon here. but it's pretty ugly. But anyway, so, yeah, something to talk about, I mean, not to digress in that conversation, but it's just, there's a lot of things that are gonna be out front, so. But like we talked about previously, the younger employees just aren't asking that question anymore. I think once they get into the job 4, 5, 6, 10 years, all of a sudden have a family and start going, this is a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
I got good retirement, I got good healthcare, but that 23-year-old out of college, that's maybe still on their parents' healthcare plan until they're 26, and they just wanna know, what am I getting paid every month?
They wanna come and make what 30+ year person.
Yes.
make, and that's just, it's not feasible.
Yeah, and not in this environment, so, yeah, anyway, that's the way we've been for 2.5 hours, so that's all I have.
Yeah, would you like to, give any updates?
Sure.
Yes.
As of yesterday, we have mailed out 2,413 ballots. And we have gotten 1,652 back, which is 68%.
Also, everyone I know probably knows, but we're gonna be looking for a new deputy. I'm sure that's probably what Jeff was hinting at. I didn't think about it, I just kind of assumed everybody knew. Yeah, but we'll be looking for a new deputy. Nathan accepted the position over in Nelson County. So he moved over there today. No, the first. What happened? Am I speaking out of turn?
Is there
Yeah.
I saw Nathan, yeah. What happened? Was I not supposed to speak about it? I apologize.
Yeah, no, they won't let him start until he has a background credit check.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't speak out of turn. He still has the job, but he's here until he passes the background check.
Yeah, this week and next week.
Okay,
So,
well, that's good for us. It gets us through election.
So we advertise for a job, what happens if it's background check?
Let's not worry about that.
It's gonna get to be a crowded office.
I'm sorry if I spoke out of turn, I apologize. No, but he's gonna be here for a couple more weeks, so that's a good thing. Yeah. I thank you for, I saw him. But no, so, yeah.
Sorry, just taking out his coffee mug.
Well, maybe he's working both places, it could be, I don't know. Yeah, but it's gonna get us through election, which is a good thing, because that was one of the concerns about the timing. But, so, I would assume that it's gonna be a good hire for Nelson County, so, but we'll be looking for a new deputy. You said hopefully sometime maybe in December, depends on how the time goes. So, we'll go from there. Other than that, anything else?
Thank you.
You're getting stuff back, that's good.
mhm,
People are voting.
mhm.
Have you already started advertising for that?
Oh, yeah. Yes,
For that?
I think we're closing December
Oh,
first,
yeah,
correct?
I saw it, yeah.
Was that correct?
No, the deadline was
Monday, I'm sorry, but we're hoping to interview on the back half of the month here and start December 1st possibly. That's what it was. Got my timeline. Yeah, so,
We gotta give us action.
yeah,
And polls will be open from 8 to 7,
8 AM.
December.
and you have all your volunteers or all your help.
Better
Yes.
make note of that on the back of this, 8 to 7, I'll say that tomorrow so people know, 8 to 7.
I know that puts a lot of,
And I have backup in case somebody's sick, somebody's,
And then just as a one more location, right?
Yep,
yes.
just more of us.
Makes sense.
Like the treasurer's office is gonna help us with when we're over there and the door and the phone and like. it just- We can't be everywhere at one time. So we
Exactly,
just-
we gotta fill wherever we're needed, I mean, it goes back and forth, so it's not, yeah. Do what we gotta do, get through the day.
Yep, we just cover for each other when we need to and.
Pretty close.
I'll come stand in the office.
Yeah.
I don't know where anything is, but I'm here, hi.
We'll leave it
I'll
down
take
to
a
the
note.
phone, this is.
And sometimes, I mean, it's just somebody wants their voice to be heard about something.
We get that a lot.
Yeah.
Especially when estimates go up, you don't see them in here, but you hear them over the phone,
Yep.
it's okay, we
Okay.
invited them.
Very good. Anything else for the good of the order? Seeing nothing? We're all good? Announcements? No? We're good. We are adjourned.